Now, the author of this series himself has referred to it as, imagine a story where Anakin Skywalker's correct choice was becoming Darth Vader. My memory is to the world as a drawing is to the photograph. Imperfect, more perfect. We remember what we must, what we choose to, because it is more beautiful and real than the truth. Atrocity is writ by quiet men in council chambers over crystal glasses of cool water. Strange little men with ashes in their hearts. Sans passion, sans hope, sans everything. Everything but fear. The man who hopes for the future delays its arrival, and the man who dreads it summons it to his door. The worlds have enough tyrants, enough murderers and genocides, but the truth is poor poetry. It is a mistake to believe we must know a thing to be influenced by it. It is a mistake to believe the thing must even be real. If there are such things as the past and the future, they do not exist as such, but are only the present in their own time. The past exists only in memory, and the future only in expectation. Neither is real. Hey, what's up, bookworms and backspacers? We are back today to talk a little more science fiction because that's something that we need to do a little more on this channel. We're going to be talking today about the first book in the Sun Eater series by Mr. Christopher Ruocchio. I'm talking, of course, about book number 1. That is called The Empire of Silence. This is a book that was released in 2018 by Dahl Publishing. Mr. Ruocchio himself saw my interest on Twitter and engaged in conversation with me. We talked about a few things, namely Dune. We emailed back and forth for a while. Very awesome guy. Basically, we just talked about what we thought about the Dune series. And I was like, this is a guy that I would like to give an opportunity to his book. So he sent me a copy of his paperback with no strings, said, hey, you don't have to review it or anything. If you read it, give it, if you got time, read it. And of course, it was already on my radar. I wanted to do it. So here's the thing. I was suffering from a little bit of fantasy burnout a couple of months ago. And I didn't plan on starting this until sometime next year. But I said, you know what? I need to move like a science fiction or a horror book or something up. So I looked at the next science fiction book I had on my list, and it was this one. So I went ahead and moved it up, and holy hell was it the kick in the pants that I needed to get out of that little fantasy funk. But I've seen a lot of conflicting opinions about this book. I'll talk exactly what those are, but namely there's lots of comparisons that this book comes up with, and I've got some of my own, but I think they're a little different because I think every book that comes out now, you see, it's Game of Thrones meets blank, right? Well, when it came to the fantasy crowd, it was always, it's Name of the Wind meets blank because it was such a popular thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about what it's about, and I'm going to talk about why I think it's good or bad, and then talk about really what my comparisons would be. So let's get into it by talking about what is it about, guys. Now, we are on the wrong planet at the right time for the best of reasons, and Hadrian Marlowe has started down a path that could only end in fire. Now, the galaxy remembers him as a hero, the man who burned every last alias Yeltsin from the sky. But they also remember him as a monster, the devil who destroyed a sun, casually annihilating 4 billion human lives, even the emperor himself, against imperial orders. But he was not a hero, he was not a monster, he was not even a soldier. Hadrian Marlowe was a man revered as a hero and despised as a murderer, and this is his chronicle of his tales across the galaxy. You like that? And I think you'll notice right off the bat, wow, that seems like you just kind of gave away the ending. Aha, that's the catch of this book. But let's get into what makes it good or bad. First off, I'm going to say, oh my God, you guys know that I don't really carry on about prose very much on this channel, because I feel like a lot of booktubers will tend to start to get a little pretentious when they talk about prose all the time, and they'll start to sound like they're the actual writers. And I don't do that. I've said all the time, guys, the reason I talk about books and the reason I read books is because I can't write to save my life. That's why I'm the worst Dungeons and Dragons player ever. I just want to punch everything real hard. So yes, I don't talk very much about prose, because for me, if your story and your characters are really great, I can suffer if you're just an average writer. I mean, there's plenty of authors I like back there that I would not consider huge wordsmiths or anything. But yeah, this guy, wow, I can't believe just how detailed and beautiful his writing style is. I had no idea. I guess I just didn't expect it in a science fiction book. And it's not saying that that's a genre where you don't see it very often. I guess I just haven't experienced it before. I've seen some very good sci-fi writers, but never one of them that really just wowed me with his use of words the way that Mr. Ruocchio does in this book. And, I knew when I researched the guy a little bit, because before I read a new author, I like to research him a little bit, see what they're all about. And I do believe that if you aren't in the States here, I'm going to kind of explain it to you. He did attend Wake Forest University in the Carolinas. Now, if you don't know, Wake Forest is a school you basically have to have like a 4.0 GPA just to get in. So you got to be very, very smart. So that combined with the writing that he put in the very beginning of this book, when he wrote me a note, was being such the nicest handwriting I've ever seen. I should have known, obviously, this is a very educated man here. So, yeah, it's just amazing how he's able to describe things, horrific things, almost, I hate to throw the word Bradbury out, but I make that similar comparison to Bradbury, where he could be writing about something absolutely horrific and something wicked this way comes, and you're like, wow, that's really beautiful. There'll be some very intense scenes that are very uncomfortable, like an Abercrombie would give you, but like writing style is just like gorgeous. I'm like, wow, that's really pretty way to describe, this person being stabbed to death. So yeah, I can't say enough about the writing style in this. I think that might be where some of the comparisons that come in, but some of the other things I really like that this is interstellar space science fiction. A lot of modern science fiction series that I like The Expanse, like Red Rising, really have kind of stuck to our own solar system. They haven't really gone interstellar. Now, I know Expanse does do that later, but I don't want to get into that in case you haven't read that series. But, it begins very much in our own solar system. So I like that this one just right off the bat, it's like, yeah, this is like 20,000 years in the future, and we are out there. We are way, way, way past Earth and all that stuff. Now, he does make references to these things. It's remembered. It's very historical, things like that. So it's never really just like so out there that you can't remember anything. But I also like this futuristic world that he's crafted. It really does almost in like kind of a cyberpunk way feel like this living, breathing city that Hadrian finds himself in for a good chunk of this book. And it's not in like a futuristic way to where you're just like, well, this is like way out there, but a very believable future. And that's something that I always have really, really appreciated in good science fiction. It's something you can believe technology getting to this point. But outside that planet, there's also this vast interstellar empire, and these multiple houses and lords and ladies and all that stuff. I think that's where the Dune comparisons have kind of come in a little bit, and it's just the lore that he's crafted about this long war that's been going on with the Cielson. You really just kind of want to know more and more, and you just kind of get a little bit more as it goes, and you just kind of get to the point where you're like, man, I'd almost like to read a history book about this war and stuff. So he gives you enough to get you interested, but he doesn't give you all the answers in this, and I think that's a really good thing. Now, the big comparison that this book gets is Name of the Wind. And you guys, by now, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know how I feel about Name of the Wind. Felt it was very beautifully written, but I could have cared less about the story. I wasn't really interested in that. He uses the same frame storytelling technique, which is basically a story within a story. So in that he is someone who tells you, hey, this is my life story, so to speak. This is how things got to where they are right now. So I think that that's why you're going to get that comparison a lot. But look, guys, Patrick Rothfuss did not create that storytelling device. I mean, Dickens did this in like 1849, with David Copperfield. This isn't anything I know that most modern fantasy readers, that's the one that they're going to go back to the most. But I see all the time, it's Name of the Wind meets Dune. You guys know I love Dune, right? Now, this concerned me so much that I actually emailed him before I read this. I was like, look, I just kind of like to know, I'm a huge Dune fan, as you can see, huge Dune fan, and I was not wild about Name of the Wind. So how would you consider those comparisons fair? And I won't tell you exactly what he told me, because I feel like that should be something done in confidence when you're communicating with somebody. But he put me at ease with some of those things, with what he told me. And I very much say now, I don't really get that Name of the Wind comparison, because while I've said, again, with Name of the Wind, I felt like the writing style was beautiful, and I acknowledged that while I was reading it. The story, I could take it or leave it. With this, I'm really invested in the story. I'm really invested in the characters, especially the main character. There's a lot of instances where I don't want to get into spoilers here, but there are secondary characters that you find yourself attached to very quickly. And the only thing I tell you is don't do that. Because, there's characters that have been here for less than 100 pages, and when they don't make it, I actually felt bad, So that just tells me, he's doing very, very good character work here. And that's very, very important with a story like this. But what I think a lot of people just are shocked about is, like I told you in the What This Is About, he tells you the ending at the very beginning. So you're like, okay, so how do we get there? And that's the big catch. You're kind of finding out how we got to this point. So it's not in a way where you're like, well, what do I care if I know how it ends? I think there's going to be more to it than that. I think it will eventually get to a point. I'm assuming this is one book out of 5. It is a planned 5-book series. Now, right now, I'm assuming it's like it'll get to a point where we catch up with the storyteller, and then we see what happens. I'm assuming that's where it's going to go. I don't know. But as far as this one, yeah, he does tell you, hey, this is what happened. This is what I'm known for, and here's how I got there. So I thought this was a very cool technique to really give you the big event at the very beginning, and then tell you how he got there. But I think the biggest thing for me in this book, and it's a problem I had in Red Rising, was that I feel like the main character is not a Mary Sue, Gary Stu, overpowered, whatever you want to call it. Hadrian screws up a lot in this book, a lot. But he does, have his struggles, but you find yourself relating to that, being able to relate to his struggles and things. And again, that is what makes a strong character for me. When you find out at the beginning that, dude, he's this super badass, I was worried it was going to be one of those, okay, so is he just going to be perfect? Is it going to be like book 1 of Red Rising, Darrow, where he just can't make a mistake? He's always the smartest person in the room? No, not at all. Not at all. So I definitely think that it's a character that you can get attached to really quickly. And seeing the struggles he goes through to actually, when he does have those moments when he overcomes stuff, you're like, yes, that's what I need out of a first-person kind of retelling of your memoirs like this. Now let's get into the bad things. There are a couple of bad things. Again, the bad for me is going to be subjective here. This might not bother you very much. It's not short. I mean, 700 pages for your debut novel, that's quite ambitious, sir. But it is some parts that some readers might find a little slow. To me, it never meanders or anything like that, so I don't think it was a real problem. But there are a couple points where you're like, so this isn't exactly the book that I thought it was. This is not going to places that I suspected. And there will be times where you kind of feel like, I felt like I've heard or seen this in a movie or another science fiction or maybe even a fantasy story before. That I'm not saying that's not going to happen to you. To me, it wasn't just like blatant rip-offing of anything like that. I mean, it's to me, anytime you're dealing with Joseph Campbell kind of storytelling, everyone's going to say, hey, it feels like it's ripping something off because they've all been ripping off Joseph Campbell over the years. I don't feel like it kind of gets quite into those themes quite as heavily, but they're there if you're looking for them. And another thing is that it definitely feels like a part 1. So if you're wanting like an open and closed story in book 1, you're probably not going to get it. It definitely feels like it was written as knowing it was going to be a series, which I assume that it was. I don't know what his book deal was when he got it, but it very much does kind of not have a real where you can be like, I can read. It's not like Star Wars, the original Star Wars, where you can watch it and be like, hey, if that was the only movie I ever saw, hey, cool, I feel like I got a full story. You're not getting that with this. It's definitely a part 1. It feels almost like a really, really good chapter 1 to what is going to be an epic story. But let's get into why I think that you guys should read it. Look, if you guys enjoy Red Rising, and I enjoy Red Rising, if you enjoy Red Rising, and if you enjoy Dune, I think you're going to find a lot to like here. I think the way that I put it is not It's Name of the Wind meets Dune. What I think that this is, if I was selling this to a modern science fiction reader, I'm going to say, imagine if Patrick Rothfuss had written the Red Rising saga by Pierce Brown. That's what I think this is like. I get way more Red Rising vibes out of this than I get out of A Name of the Wind or Dune. And that's a good thing, guys. I love Red Rising. You guys know I'm a huge Red Rising fan. I do think that, I hate to do this because I feel like you're tearing something else down to build something up. I do feel like Mr. Ruocchio is a better writer than Pierce Brown was with book 1 of Red Rising. I think Pierce Brown's gotten better every book, so I don't mean that as detracting from him. It's really more a testament to how good of a writer Mr. Ruocchio is here. And I say, imagine Red Rising, and if you guys haven't read Red Rising, you're probably not going to get this, obviously. But I say, imagine Red Rising, but Darrow started as a Gold, and his father was Nero. That's kind of how this series really begins. And it kind of takes like almost an opposite turn from Red Rising. So again, if you liked Red Rising and you want like a little bit more, something a little deeper, I think maybe this will be for you. I expect this story to really just turn upside down for you about a third of the way in. It really just takes a big left turn that I was not expecting. I thought, okay, I know this is going to happen next, right? No, it does not happen that way. But it really, again, guys, if you just want intelligent science fiction that really isn't bogged down in the wankery of how good of a writer he is, I think they are just kind of bogged down with over science terms. I think you'll be fine. It's not quite as simple as I've said the science in Red Rising is, and it's not quite as like expanded as like the science in The Expanse is. It's somewhere right in between those two. Maybe not as heavy of themes as Dune. It's not quite as philosophical as Dune. You do see a lot of the hierarchy and things like that I can see where the Dune comparisons come from. But yeah, it's not nearly as thought-provoking as like a Dune is. But again, you're talking about my favorite book of all time there. Don't tell me it's like my favorite book of all time. You're going to have me judging it unfairly. So I think if you go into it with the expectations, if it's like I said, like Patrick Rothfuss, a really wonderful writer, maybe not as good of a storyteller, but not as a very, very good wordsmith, Patrick Rothfuss is writing the Red Rising saga. And that's what this feels like. It's very, very good writing style. I can't say that enough. Now, if I have any final thoughts here, the name of the wind meets Dune was very, very concerning for me. And what I didn't expect, I think, was just how good of a writer he was. But again, I keep talking about, but it's never to a point where I feel like it's not digestible. This isn't purple prose or very hard to get through. It's just, you notice it. You're like, wow, he really does have a way of words. This isn't no Brent Weeks thing where all of a sudden he's going to slide into like a, hey, check out her rack or something like that. You know, it really is a professional writing style, but never to a point where, you know, for the sake of levity or anything like that. You're still having a good time in this universe. And, you know, it has very high highs. It has some serious lows of what happens to our main character in this. It really gets put through the ringer a few times. So really much, like I said, it kind of feels like a prologue to a bigger space epic that's about to happen. I feel like now that we're going to be moving to new locations and maybe hopping around the universe, I'm very excited to see what comes next. I've got book 2 on the schedule for February. Like I said, I moved this up. I was going to do January, February, March in between my Malazan and my Realm of the Elderlings reading. It was going to kind of be my sci-fi buffer between those series. But I moved this one up because of what I told you. But I've got book 2 on the schedule for February, book 3 on the schedule for March. He does have a very, very good... Actually, you know, I'll talk about his communication here for a minute. Check out his YouTube page. It's just under Sun Eater. Christopher Ruocchio's, his YouTube page. His communication level with his fans is on Brandon Sanderson levels. He will update constantly about where he's at. He shows like Excel spreadsheets about how he plans out how many chapters, how many words he's going to write a day. It's a really, really awesome thing. And he did just release a thing that he did miss the date that he needed to get the 4th book done to get it out in 2021. So it should be coming out March of 2022. But yeah, he's a very fast writer, it seems like, and he communicates well with his fans. And there's already 3 very, very chunky books out that you guys can get into. But I can't tell you, please check out his YouTube channel. It's very, very awesome to see. And you guys know my weakness, authors that will communicate with you. If you've got a question or anything, you email him or you message him on like Instagram or Twitter, he'll get back to you. Every single time. It's really, really cool to have an author communicate with you. So I want to thank him for sending me this book, and obviously thank him for writing such a kick-ass beginning to a story. I can't wait to see where it goes, because most of the feedback I've heard from fans of the series, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and it only gets better as it goes along. So if that's the case, man, I am ready to buckle up. So guys, have you read Empire of Silence? Do you plan to? If you have any questions, please let me know. It's a big recommend from me. Drop in the comments, guys, and I will talk to you there.